Hello there everybody, my name's Stuart McDonald, I'm the Guards Manager here at the East Lancashire Railway, and today we'd like to present to you a programme about prepping your stock when you come onto the platform and getting it ready for the day's work. I'm very fortunate to have my friend Alex Walker here, who's going to run us through the whole 9 yards. So, without further ado, let's prep some stock.
Right, so beginning, sign's on saying handbrake on, I'm checking it physically is, which it is. So we've got the handbrake on, landlines attached, handbrake definitely is on, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to have a once around the brake van, just looking at basic emergency equipment before I actually then move on to the outside of the stock. So I can already see that I've got one tail lamp here, and underneath I've got another tail lamp, and I'm checking it is a red lamp and it's not a white lamp, because I've looked at the wrong lamp. So I know that I've got two tail lamps. And looking in the brake van I can see the emergency coupling. Looking next to me we've got the vacuum emergency brake, no obvious defect or problem with it, just always have a quick glance, make sure nothing's trapped in to wedge it open or anything like that. Looking around the brake van, just a general check. No problem, I can see with the lighting control panel, I'll check the lights afterwards. Looking over to the other side of the brake van, so I've got a track circuit clip there, spare vacuum bag, I've got a not to remove board which I may well actually use as well later just as a belt and braces protection given the circumstances of the recording today. We've got our fire beaters up there, and then turning round, and as I mentioned a moment ago, the emergency coupling, we've got a brake stick, and then having a look in the cup. So what's in the other side? I can see a point clip, but I'm going to check the emergency cupboard outside in a moment, and then I'll come back to that to see what else I need in a minute. So I'll look outside first of all. I've got a defect book. What I tend to do as well is just have a quick look through the recent defects and see what else has been noted. Through lighting control, initially got through lighting control, lighting again, and then the toilet. So I've had a quick glance through. Those last defects are back in March, obviously some time ago as we know, but so I'm aware of what's going on there. So at the moment, apart from not being able to open that cupboard door, I'm happy with what's in here. What I'm going to do now is just finish the brake van equipment, so by going out into the corridor, looking at things like the fire extinguisher, the emergency toolbox, down to the ladder and the ramp which you can see, and then we'll move on to the outside. Glass is intact on the emergency toolbox. There isn't actually a label to say what's inside it, which is unusual. Most of them have a label to tell you what's actually inside there, so I'll need to look into that in a bit more detail afterwards. From a fire extinguisher point of view, we have a fire extinguisher here. The seal is intact there, so I know that the fire extinguisher hasn't been used. It's quite hard to tell on there what the test date is, so I'm wondering whether there's another sticker on the other side, so I'm just going to have a look at the other side of the fire extinguisher. Well, actually that for me is going to be a defect, because that's saying that that's unserviceable, US, on that sticker there. The only other sticker is ineligible, or illegible, so as far as I'm concerned that is a defective fire extinguisher in that it hasn't got a test date on. But of course on this vehicle there may well be another fire extinguisher at the end of the vehicle as well anyway, so I'll look at that afterwards. Okay, and while I'm here as well, the glass is intact on the ETH emergency switch as well, so that's okay. The ETH is on inside the glass and the glass is intact. Lovely. So walking through to the luggage compartment, nice and simple in here. I'm looking, first of all, we've got the emergency ladder which we have, it's properly secure so it's not going to fall on anybody, and likewise with the ramp. So again, it looks intact, don't look to be any problems with it, and again it's securely stowed as well, so again it's not going to fall over onto anybody. So I'm happy with that.
The toolbox is almost always in the same location relative to the guard's office. However, in some of our brake vans there is the disabled compartments, and as you can see this restricts your vision down the carriage. If you do walk down the carriage, however, you will find the emergency ladder and the ramp.
Okay, so given the circumstances of recording today, I'm also going to put a not to remove board on the stock. I won't do that normally on a routine stock prep with the signal's permission and usual arrangements, but unusually today, given the circumstances, I am going to put a not to remove board on the stock as well. Before I do that though, I'm going to contact the Bury South Signalling. Hello, this is Alex Walker. I'm the guard of 2 Hotel 01 standing at platform 3 at Bury Station. I'm requesting a block of the platforms 2 and 3 lines for the purpose of a stock preparation, please. Thank you, Bury South Signalman. So you're confirming that I have got a block of the platforms 2 and 3 lines, and when I finish with preparation, I'll call you back. Thank you. Okay, and as mentioned, I'm going to put a not to remove board on the stock. Always put on the platform side, as we know, and where it's most obvious. So I've chosen this end at the moment is the most obvious end, and it's clearly visible on the platform side along the whole length of the train. Okay, so I'm going to start at the north end of the stock here. So first of all, I'm looking at the end doors, and I can check that the French pin is in place. It's properly secured. The door looks to be closed and secured, so I've no problem, no concern there. I will later check the door from the inside as well to make sure that the BR1 lock is on. So looking at the end of the train, working on the assumption that it'll be a normal loco buffering on, I'm looking to check, first of all, the buffers, the collar is on here, so that buffer is as it should be, and likewise at this side, the collar is on and this buffer is as it should be. Then looking at the buckeye coupling, buckeye is down, the pin and toggle are there and correct, so that's properly secured as it should be in the down position, again matching the buffers which are out and in the long position, ready for the normal loco to couple on. We've got the vacuum brake, the pipe's obviously already released there, that's not a problem. If you work on the assumption the loco would come on at this end, then that can happily stay as it is like that. From a steam heat point of view, the steam heat bag is there and secured. That is closed at the minute, that would open it, and that's closed it again. So that's closed, I'm happy with that. Unlikely in this sun that we're going to want steam heat, even if we did have a loco, but we can wishful think. From an ETH point of view, electric train heating, the ETH jumper, this is secured in the proper place, as it should be. I'm just going to put that cable through into, there's a clip there that you probably can't see on the video at the moment, but that just secures that cable in place and just stops it rubbing on any of your buffers or anything, so that's what I've just done there. So from an ETH point of view, that's there as it should be. We've obviously got the socket there, that's closed and protected. We've also got no charging cables on at this end of the stock, so just to confirm that there, no landline attached to this end of the stock. So I'm just looking now from the end and just do the final check. We've got the lighting jumpers there, as they should be, properly secured with the chains. And a quick final once over, there's nothing else obvious, any hazards, anything else that I've not thought about at the end of the coach, and I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so the first thing now is just a general overview of the rake, looking along the outside. I'm just glancing along, checking if no not to be moved boards on this side. There shouldn't be, because if there is a not to be moved board, it should normally be on the platform side, but I would always do a quick look anyway to check, is there anything obvious? So can I see any not to go labels on the outside of any coaches, any not to be moved boards? Are there any obvious things like broken windows, or even can I see looking along any butterflies that have been turned, anything unusual that might give me any cause for concern on the rake? Looking along this rake, there's nothing that gives me any cause for concern, so I'm now about to start the actual underframe prep on the outside from 6 foot now. Okay, so I've already checked the end of the stock, I've checked the outside on both sides for anything obvious, so I'm now going to get into the detail of the underframe. And I'm also, as I'm walking along as well, looking above sole bar, just for anything obvious like door handles and say, looking again for any broken windows that I might not be able to see from the end of the stock. Getting in then to the bogies, first of all looking at the brake blocks. Obviously the stock's not been used for a while, so the brake blocks are released as we can see. Looking at the thumbnail is there, so with loads of wear yet to go on the brake box there, so there's no problem at all with the brake box. Everything looks in order. And what I'm looking at here now is there anything obviously wrong with the bogie? So I'm looking to check out any obvious oil leaks. There aren't here. The springs, there's no obvious breaks in the springs. Nothing else obviously broken or dangerous that will give me any cause for concern. And clearly I can look in this side here, again to the brake block on the other side of the axle there, and looking inside there, again the thumbnails of the brake box. And then this one here is easiest to see on the outside, again loads of spare on the brake box there. So I'm quite happy with that bogie. We've got loads of capacity on the brake box themselves, no obvious hazards, nothing that gives me any cause for concern on this bogie at all. Again, looking at the underframe, we've got the vacuum string here. Okay, and so pulling the vacuum string there, just to check it is properly connected. As I mentioned already, I wouldn't expect any give to be in it because all the vacuum's already leaked off over time, but the string is attached there, and you can see the movement on the bottom of the vacuum cylinder there, in terms of me pulling the string. There isn't any actual movement in the piston itself because the system's already leaked off over the last few weeks. Carrying on, looking at the battery box, a key risk for me here is that the battery box covers are properly fastened. So we've got the fastener there, here, and with the toggle down, so that's not going to go anywhere. And then the same at the other side. This for me is a really important thing, that the risk of one of the covers coming off a moving train and dropping could cause points to move, could cause all sorts of problems from the train's point of view. So that for me is a really important thing to check. And again, I'm happy with that. While that wooden cover is at a slight angle, it isn't going anywhere, it's properly fastened, so I'm happy with that. Moving on, we've got the solenoid box here and also the emergency lighting point. While we don't use these as much as we used to in the old days, there is of course still a chance that an individual cable could be attached to the emergency lighting point here just to charge this one coach. So there isn't, so I'm happy with that. And obviously the box here, which of course is the one with our emergency switch underneath to turn off the light should we need it at the end of the day. So that's here, that's intact. Again, just a visual check here to check there's nothing obvious wrong. Nothing here is likely to come loose, break off, anything like that. Again, I'm quite happy with that, so I'm going to move on. Just again, looking underneath, again, just a visual check here. Next vacuum cylinder, again, the string's attached, but again, the vacuum's worn off over time, so that's as I expect it to be. There's no problem there at all. Looking underneath here, there's no dynamo belt on this stock. Most of the stock don't have dynamo belts on anymore, but I am checking that the dynamo itself is properly attached. The bolts there are in place, there's a safety chain there as well. So again, there's nothing that gives me any cause for concern about that. Okay, so again, just checking here that the string is attached, and I'm pulling on the string on the valve there. If there were to be any vacuum left, then at this point we would hear and see the brakes being released. Clearly this stock's been here for a number of weeks, so it's not going to happen here. But when I pull this, what I would expect to see normally is this piston, we could hear the sound of the air, but also we can see this piston dropping. And what we actually want to get to is what we can see here with this gap. So the piston, as you're holding a string, will keep dropping even after the noise has stopped normally. And excuse me. And if you're pulling the string, you need to be watching until the piston has dropped all the way if you're fully releasing the brakes. And it's a common mistake sometimes that once the noise has stopped, you let go of the string and actually don't wait until the piston's physically dropped all the way and doesn't move any further. Then moving on to the final bogie of this coach. So again, we've got the thumbnail there, so there's plenty of still more wear to go on that. No problem there at all. Like last time, looking for anything obvious on the bogie. So are there any obvious oil leaks, any problems at broken springs or anything like that? So there's nothing obvious there at all. Final check inside with the brake box there. Brake box there to get the right angle so you can see. One of the reasons having a lamp, of course, is so if you do need to, you can just light something up that's a bit difficult to see. And then again, the brake box here, again with loads of slack there. So, until I come to the actual other end there, final thing is, One last check of the outside of the coach. The doors, the windows are all fine. The butterfly's in the correct horizontal position. There's no tanking being done on the outside of this coach, which I wouldn't expect in a 6 foot, but I'm looking at it anyway. So I'm happy with the outside of the coach, and I'm now in a moment about to move on to the inter-vehicle connectors. Okay, the other thing I'm always conscious of for the whole of the stock prep as well is obviously we get any protection that we need depending upon where the stock's located, but also from a track safety point of view as well. I'm still keeping vigilance in case of any approaching trains, what's going on around me, but also in terms of trip hazards and slip hazards underfoot as well. So things like this hose pipe in the 6 foot, obviously as we're preparing the stock we don't want to trip over that. The normal personal track safety hazards as well. Obviously we walk on the ballast where we can do, we avoid stepping on rails, we avoid tripping over rails, we're conscious that sleepers, as we can see here, can be very greasy and slippery, and there could be a whole host of other hazards as well. The other one, of course, in the 6 foot is biological hazards. People do disobey the notices and flush toilets in stations, and again, I don't want to get all that all over me if I can possibly avoid it. So while I'm doing the stock prep, I'm also really aware and conscious of personal track safety hazards as well, to look after my safety while I'm doing the preparation. Okay, so a visual check of the outside and the coupling first of all. I've already mentioned about the butterflies, but again, I'm looking at the butterflies. The gangway connection is made properly there. There's no excess difference in the stepping height between the two coaches. As we can see there's only a very fractional difference there, so I'm happy with that. I mentioned that there's no hoses attached to the train. The lighting jumpers are there, properly connected as they should be. And then I'm going to now move on to the actual coupling itself and all the jumpers and bags as well. So first of all, we can see that the buffers are both in the short positions, that the collars are properly stowed where they should be. I'm now looking at the underneath and the couplings. Obviously, this is a really important risk area. If we have an issue with the Buckeye coupling, of course, causing the train to unintentionally divide for any reason, then of course that's a major safety issue, because we could end up with a train unintentionally dividing in service and ultimately somebody falling between the coaches. So for me, this is a really, really important part of the guard's role in the stock preparation. So, starting first of all with the Buckeye itself, which is a big risk that I've mentioned, I'm looking here, and if I need to, I've got my lamp to shine in as well. And what I'm looking at first of all is does the Buckeye look to be properly connected, which it is, and that the toggles are as it should be. And what I'm looking at here is underneath the Buckeye that we can see that the drop is there on both sides, and then that we've got clear daylight between the actual handles of the Buckeye which are pulled to release it as well. So I'm happy with those parts of it now that I can see underneath, and in a moment we'll get a closer camera angle to show you. But I'm then also looking at the toggle and pins that actually hold the two Buckeyes into the horizontal position as well. So that's really important for me. But first of all, I've checked that the Buckeyes are properly coupled as they should be. But then, of course, the pins and toggles are in place that are going to stop them from actually dropping and causing them to uncouple. So on this side, I can see that the toggle is through and vertical, and just shining my lamp there just gives a clearer view of it for me to look in, and we'll get a close look in a moment. And then on the other side, we're looking to see that again, the toggle is pretty much flush with the side of the Buckeye coupling. It's the right way round. There's a flat surface that needs to align with where it goes in fully, and that is. And again, I'll have a glance at that from the other side later on. But for me, that big risk there is that the Buckeye is properly coupled and everything's in the right order. While I'm here as well, I'm then also going to look at the brakes and the heating. So we've got the vacuum brake on this vehicle, and that's properly connected there. Both pins are in on the vacuum brake, so I'm happy with that. The steam heating bags are connected here, so those are properly connected there. One of the bags has got a toggle and the other one's got it missing, but one of them's in place. I'm happy with that. They are open, so in the unlikely event that here in April we wanted to use steam heat, then that is open on that side, and looking through to the other side it's open as well. And then finally moving on to electrics, I've already talked about the lighting jumpers there. looking at the ETH, the ETH is properly coupled here and properly sat in its place as well. So I'm looking at that in there, and also that is held in place as well properly as it should be. And finally, the through charging cables, again, that's properly coupled there, it's secure, it's not going to go anywhere. And there's nothing at all, as a final general check, that's likely to get caught as the train's in motion. So I'm just doing a final check to check there's nothing that's too loose, too low, anything else that would give me any cause for concern. And again, just taking that step back and just asking yourself a final check before you move on, is everything safe? Is there anything else obvious here that's wrong? And in this case, there isn't. So a final thing just to look at on the end of this brake vehicle is we have got a step here and a step there, and again I'm just checking that they're intact as they should be. Hopefully we won't need to use them, but just in case we do, then of course we want to make sure that they're not going to collapse under our weight. And then finally the drain cock here, as we know, different ways of draining some of the coaches. A lot of them nowadays are drained from the inside, but there are still a few coaches like this with external drain cocks. And at the moment this is in the vertical position as it should be, which is closed. And that's just part of my check. What we don't want to do is leave that in the open position because we missed it, and then of course we'll come to tanking later on and find that all the water we're tanking will just keep emptying back through onto the track. So again, another important thing there is just to make sure that the drain cocks are closed on the outside. So on the brake vehicle, a couple of extra things to think about. First of all, I'm looking to check that the steps are here and intact, because of course we don't know when we as guards might need to get in or out of the train, not as a platform. Also the bulkhead light here, and this is interesting because the bulkhead light isn't illuminated at the moment, and yet when we were in the brake van before, the sign was on the handbrake saying that the landlines are attached. So that's interesting. So there's a few possible reasons for that. It could be, first of all, that somebody's unplugged the landline charging cable but just forgotten to take the sign off in the brake van. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that perhaps somebody's either turned off the power supply or the tripped, and therefore there's no power coming through, or it could be something as simple as the fact that the bulb might have gone on the bulkhead there. So we don't actually know, but I've just noted that as an interesting factor as to why the bulkhead light isn't illuminated. The other thing I want to do on the brake van as well is look at the bogies and move on to the brakes. And of course, being a brake vehicle, although the vacuum's obviously leaked off now, we still expect, and we find the brakes of course still firmly applied here. Obvious reason of course being that this is a brake vehicle. We checked earlier on and the handbrake was firmly on, and as part of the prep there we would expect that the brake will still be firmly applied with the handbrake being on as well. And that just gives me some assurance as I'm doing the stock prep about the efficiency of a handbrake by that being on. Okay, so a different type of bogie here. So as well as the usual checks about brake blocks that we've already talked about, what we're looking at here in particular is these types of bogies are more susceptible to oil leaks. They're not sealed in the same way the Commonwealth bogies are. So again, we're looking to see is there a recent oil leak here. And while there is oil visible on the outside, actually looking down at the floor, if there'd been any substantial oil leak obviously dripping down, then that will give me cause of concern. Is it going to run hot? So there's nothing on this bogie that's particularly out of the ordinary here in terms of the oil, and again just checking that the covers are secure, which it should be. And then the spring arrangements on these bogies are obviously slightly different as well. We've got the obvious springs here, but also these springs here as well. So again, same principle as a Commonwealth bogie, but a slightly different practical check, just to check there's nothing obviously broken with anything here. So again, no obvious breaks in the springs on this bogie, nothing obvious that looks like it's untoward. So on the Buffy car, an extra check of course is about the gas cylinder compartment, and what I'm doing here is checking that the covers are properly in place and secured. So just a quick pull first of all to check that it is secure, and then of course the fact we've got the catches there to check that they're in the proper horizontal position and secure and not going anywhere. Obviously this is again important, a bit like when we mentioned earlier about the battery box covers, a very similar type of thing. The last thing we want is while the train's in motion, one of these coming off, dropping, could cause all sorts of problems, say with moving points, signals and things under the train, or just generally causing damage. So for me again, this is quite an important check that those covers are properly secured. Okay, so a couple of extra things at the end of the stock here that we've not already talked about. As I've been walking along the outside of the train, obviously I've been checking as well for wheel scotches, and we can see here that we have got wheel scotches at this end of the train. While we wouldn't normally nowadays put wheel scotches underneath the train in the platform here at Bury, this has been done specially because of the length of time that the stock's been stabled here with the COVID restrictions. So obviously before we move the train we would remove both wheel scotches, and as you can see there's one under each wheel here. So that's important. I also mentioned earlier as well about the charging cable, and we found out why the bulkhead lighting, the bulkhead light wasn't illuminated earlier because the charging cable was actually being disconnected here. But normally we would expect with the indication we got in the brake van, the label on the brake earlier on, if that charging cable would have been attached here, we'd have through charging throughout the rake. Okay, so looking at this end of the stock, apart from the things I've already mentioned, one difference here is that we've got a bolt on the gangway door here rather than the French pin, so again I'm checking that bolt is properly bolted and secured. The stock's been here that long, we've got a spider's web that's grown across here, and we're also thinking what loco is going to be running today. Most locos will buffer up in the normal way, but we all know there are some type of locos, class 33 being the obvious one, and the tender end of an A4 steam locomotive where we may well need to use the Buckeyes. And of course if we do need to use the Buckeyes and we know about that, then as part of the stock prep, now is the time to get the Buckeyes set up and working correctly, ready for that loco. Next decision now is how we get back onto the platform. There's obviously a few different ways of doing this, and we as professional guards have to know our circumstances and what's happening around us and what's going to be the safest way. Of course, one option is to go back on with 6 foot to one of the guards vans and climb back in through the guards van using the step provided. Or of course here we've got the step there, so we can actually, if we want to, climb back up using the steps here onto the platform. Or of course the other way is to walk to the platform end and walk back up the platform ramp as well. And what we were thinking of here is what are the weather conditions, what are circumstances going on around us, where's the nearest phone, because of course when we get back to the platform to a position of safety, we'll be wanting to ring the signalman and let him take the block back off to lift the block as soon as possible as well. So I'm thinking through what's going to be the safest method for me to get back onto the platform, taking into account the circumstances on the day. So having returned to the platform, of course, the first thing I'll do at this stage is contact the controlling signalman so the signalman can take the block back off and let other train movements commence. Once I've done that, my next step then is to prepare the outside of the train on the platform side. And while we've been able to do a lot of the below soul bar checks from the 6 foot, there are a few things of course that we need to do from this side because we can only see from this side. And so we're going to do those now before we then move on to the inside of the train. And one of the obvious things that straight away I can see here is the drain cock for the tank here, which as we can see at the moment is horizontal and it's in the open position, and so again we want to turn that back to, when it's quite stiff, back to the closed position. So again that's now in the closed position, so when we want to start tanking this vehicle we know that it's not just going to flood straight through. So on the outside of the coach here, a useful reference point of course are the stars just on the soul bar there, just reminding us that the strings of course for the vacuum come through to both sides. We saw it from the other side earlier on, and of course we can pull the strings from the platform side as well, and the star is a useful indicator for us. Again, thinking from a risk point of view, we've got battery boxes on both sides of each coach, and therefore of course the big risk here now is making sure that we don't forget the battery boxes on this side of the train. It's easy to do where we think, oh, we've done all the soul bar checks now on one side, we've given the block back, we come back on the platform, we get a cup of tea, we get distracted, we're talking to somebody that we know, and of course it's really important that we don't forget these vital below soul bar checks that we can only do from the platform side as well. So again, a battery box cover on this coach. I'm just crouching down just to make sure that I can see properly all the catches. Same as before, there are 4 catches here and a toggle as well. Everything looks intact, but I'm physically checking all those toggles by getting down to get the right angle to check. So again, looking at the couplings from the platform side, we've already checked most things from the 6 foot side earlier on, but there's a few things again that we just want to make sure about that we can see from this side as well. So first of all, we've got the buffers on this side of the short position, and the collars are both in the correct place on the housings there. Then obviously we talked about the risk earlier on of a buckeye splitting an unintentional division of a train. So again, I'm just making sure from this side as well about the toggles and pins that I can see from this side. And quite often again, it can be useful to have a lamp here just to shine in. I can see the toggle there in the proper position on this side. And again, the pin is looking as it should be from this side as well. So again, this just gives me that reassurance. And then finally, of course, the lighting jumper on this side as well. We've got lighting jumpers, of course, on both sides of the trains. We want both of them to be connected wherever possible. So again, I'm checking that from this side as well.
It's important to remember to check the electric train heat cables on both sides of the carriages so that you have heating all the way through the train.
Okay, so while we're walking through the inside of a train, obviously there's quite a few safety things we need to look at from a customer point of view as well. And not just safety, but customer comfort things as well. So we'll take a walk through the inside of the train and look at a couple of different types of coaches and the types of things to be looking at internally as well. So, looking inside a compartment such as this, and again, just walking through internally, I'm just checking for obvious hazards, so broken windows internally that we might not have seen from the outside earlier on. If we're in winter, of course, the other thing is to make sure that the heaters are all turned on, and this is something that people can forget. So just using this compartment as an example, there's a heater on-off switch on both sides of the compartment, and again, so during winter when I think I might need to use steam heat, part of my internal prep will be to make sure that both of those are turned on for customers as well. Okay, and then carrying on towards the end of the coach, I'll be just checking inside the toilet first of all, just to make sure that it's clean and tidy and no obvious hazards.
Brilliant.
So, as we mentioned before, drain cocks for the toilets, we've got a mixture at the moment. Most of them are being converted to internal drain cocks, but as we saw earlier, some coaches still have them on the outside as well at the sole bar. So what I'm just checking here is the drain cock, and we can see the drain cock here. It is labelled, some of them are labelled better than others in the dark. This one actually is in line with the pipe, which suggests to me that it's open from when the stock's last been drained down. So again, I'm just going to turn that so it's at right angles to the pipe itself, which is a normal closed position. So when we come to tanking next time, then of course the tank will fill up and it's not just going to flush straight through. So obviously we're checking again, each coach needs a fire extinguisher, an operational fire extinguisher in service. So we're checking, as we said before, but for each coach it's here, it's still sealed, and we check that that it's in date on the sticker on the outside as well. So all those checks need to be made for each individual passenger coach. And here as well we've got the electric train heater switch. Again, we mentioned that earlier on outside the brake vehicle, but again to check that this is sealed as well and turned on.
Yeah, go for your door.
And then we move on. In terms of the internal gangway doors, normally they will be closed overnight. If we do need to unlock one for any reason, of course, I've got my BR1 key here, so that fits this lock here, should we need it. And then looking into the gangway itself, as part of the stock prep at sole bar level, I've also already checked the heights, so I shouldn't hopefully get any nasty surprises about the train heights here. But what we're also looking here is to make sure that the doors are now available for customers' use, and that things like the French pins are properly secured and not just dangling about. And there's actually a separate holder for most of them inside the coaches, so that you can sit there firmly. So as we can see here, just turning my back, this French pin you quite often see them dangling down or sometimes left there. What they should actually be doing inside is secured in as a hole just there, which actually properly secures them. And one of my things that I always look at is to check that the French pins are properly secured where they should be as well. Also here again checking the curtains. These are a fairly recent addition to the Mark 1 rakes, but again just checking that where we have got the curtains that they are properly in position, that they're secure. There's nothing there that's going to be dangerous, hazardous in any way to any of our customers. So we've done that, and then we're going to move on In this case I need to undo the bolt, so somebody's left the bolt popped on the door through to the next coach. And I also found as well that it needs unlocking. So we probably found that this coach has been recently, this rake's recently been re-marshalled. So again, I've unlocked the door with my BR1 key. I'm just going to open this gangway door now. And there's a clip behind, just check so we can there it is properly clipped open. There's no need for that to be closed at the moment, so we can leave that open so that people can walk through the train should they need to. Okay, so as I'm walking through the train, on top of the things I've already mentioned, I'm also looking at things from a general safety point of view as well. So again, are there any broken windows that I see that I've not yet noticed? Are there any hazards on the floor, any flooring coming up, for example, that might be a trip hazard to customers? Just anything in general that I've not yet noticed. Any obvious deficiencies at the moment with lights. We might see, for example, you know, obviously broken light bulbs or something like that. Walking into the stock itself, I've already mentioned about heating in the compartment stock, but again, here in the in this Buffy coach, looking at the heating switches, which we'll zoom on in a minute, to make sure all those are turned on if we need them in winter. Again, from a customer point of view, for all the seats looking good working order. This coach actually looks in very good condition, so again we can't see any immediate problems with tables. The tables are all secured as should be. The upholstery looks in good condition. Again, there's no obvious defects on the floor, nothing obvious above my heads. So really at this point it's just a general visual inspection of everything, making sure that things are as I expect them to be for our customers when they start boarding.
Whilst in the vestibule end of the carriages, remember to test the train lights with your T key in the lighting fixture here. And then don't forget to turn them off.
Yeah. So if we did need to take a seat out for any use, then obviously I'd eventually be looking at putting some sort of barrier tape or something tied round. But one of the obvious things we can do is lift up the seat cushion, and we want it to be secure, but also obvious that it's out of use as well. So we can lift it up like that. We could, even if we wanted to, turn it completely on its side. My suggestion is we probably just leave it like that and then do the same at the other side, and then put some sort of barrier tape and perhaps a notice on the table just to make it obvious to people that it's out of use. There's various reasons why we might need to do that. It could be that the table was loose. It could be that we've had a problem with a window here, something like that. So there's all sorts of reasons why we might want to take a particular table out of use. As we mentioned before, talking about heating if we need it in winter, this coach is one of the unusual coaches where the heating switch is hidden. If you look round above, there's no heating switches at all at the normal sort of eye level where you'd see them. And this is the one that's actually down here in the middle of the coach. So I'm here next to the centre door, and there's one switch here. Same type of switch, on or off, and in this case it's definitely fully on. But again, one of the checks I'll be making is to make sure that that switch in particular is fully in the on position, so that the heating on the whole of this coach is on if we need it. We all have our own different ways of recording things on our guard sheet. What I tend to do normally is, while I'm on the platform doing other things, is record at that point the weight and the composition of the train, ready to tell the driver when the loco comes on. But again, we all have our different ways of doing that. A lot of guards like to use the stock checklist as a checklist as they're going around the soul bar as well. So we all have our different ways, and I think the thing there is that we get used to our own system of doing things to basically make sure we don't make any mistakes. What I'm also going to be doing here as well is opening the passenger doors. Where it's safe to do so on the platform side, what I like to do is both unlock the door with the T key, but actually also just open and close each door as well. And that just gives me assurance that I've got a safe opportunity to do so, that the door's actually working properly and I haven't got any concerns for later on. Okay, one thing that we don't use very often nowadays, because we've got the food charging cables on the stock, is these individual units of charging an individual coach. For those of us who've been around for far too many years, we remember when we used to have charging cables like these more regularly on individual coaches. And the idea is that this charging unit does, as we just said, it charges one individual coach through the emergency lighting point on the solar bar of the coach itself. Very straightforward, the instructions are on the top. There's an instruction not to leave it out in the open, use it to leave it under the canopy, as as we are here normally. It plugs in with a normal 13 amp plug, which we would plug in later, and then with a connector that goes onto the emergency lighting point on the outside toolbar of the coach as well. So I'm going to just put that on in a moment just to show what it's like when it's connected to the coach. So we can see that the connector. So as we've mentioned, instructions are on the unit itself. The 13 amp plug to plug into any normal main sockets on the other side of the unit. We've got the switch here. As we've seen, the switch was in the off position, which it was when I was connecting it to the vehicle before. And also inside here, with the instructions, are further switches and an ammeter as well. So when that's all plugged in and turned on, the combination of the lights and the ammeter should give us that reassurance that the unit is working.
You have been watching a Guards Department training film on the preparation of Mark 1 rolling stock. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank your trainer today, Mr. Alex Walker. Very instructive, Alex. Thank you very much for taking the time. You have been watching an Atlantic video view of the East Lancashire Railway in Bury.